The conference table gleamed under the morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, but Marcus Wellington barely noticed the luxuries surrounding him. The CEO of Wellington Industries paced frantically across the hotel suite, his $3,000 Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor like a countdown timer. His phone pressed against his ear, sweat beading on his forehead despite the perfectly climate-controlled room. "What do you mean she's in the ER?" Marcus's voice cracked with barely contained panic. "This is a $40 million deal, Patricia. Find me another translator. Now!" His assistant, Derek, burst through the door, tablet clutched in his trembling hands, his usually pristine appearance disheveled. "Sir, I've called every agency in the city. It's 7 a.m. on a Saturday, and the Germans land in 3 hours. Everyone's either booked, unavailable, or... Don't tell me what's impossible." Marcus slammed his hand on the conference table, causing the crystal water glasses to ring like warning bells. "Tell me solutions. These aren't just any Germans. This is the Schneider Industrial Group. They're old school, traditional, formal, one cultural misstep, and we lose everything." The weight of impending disaster pressed down on Marcus like a physical force. His entire European expansion strategy hung in the balance. The board had already questioned his aggressive international investments, and several members were looking for any excuse to vote him out. This deal wasn't just about money, it was about survival. If you're already hooked, go ahead and tap that like button. This story gets crazier. And trust me, you don't want to miss what the Waitress does next. Shout out to @Marion_Perry-Burse8901 for your thoughtful comment on my last video. I see you and appreciate you. If you want a shout out in the next one, drop a thoughtful comment below. I pick one person every time. "What about Google Translate?" Derek suggested desperately. AI translation apps? Marcus stared at his assistant with incredulous fury. "Derek, these are businessmen who still use fountain pens and expect their coffee served in porcelain. They measure respect by attention to detail. You think they'll accept me fumbling through a phone app?" A soft knock interrupted their crisis. "Not now!" Marcus shouted, but the door opened anyway. Amanda Johnson entered with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned to navigate spaces where she wasn't entirely welcome. At 26, she carried herself with a grace that made her hotel uniform look almost elegant. Her intelligent eyes took in the scene, the scattered papers, the frantic energy, the desperation that hung in the air like expensive cologne. In her apron pocket, a hospital bill from 3 months ago rustled softly, a reminder of the $40,000 debt that kept her working double shifts. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "Mija, you're too smart for this place, but sometimes we serve coffee until we can serve our dreams." "Your coffee, Mr. Wellington," she said, setting down a silver tray with practiced precision. "Brazilian dark roast, 1 sugar, no cream." Marcus barely glanced up, his dismissal automatic and complete. "Just leave it and get out. Can't you see we're in the middle of something important?" Amanda had been carrying a small leather journal for 2 years, filled with overheard conversations, cultural observations, and business insights she'd gleaned from serving executives. She'd always been listening, always learning, always preparing for a moment she wasn't sure would ever come. Today, that moment had arrived. "Excuse me, sir, I couldn't help but overhear. You need a German translator?" Marcus's head snapped up, his face immediately hardening with the kind of expression that had made him notorious in business circles. His eyes swept over Amanda with obvious disdain, taking in her uniform, her race, her presumption to speak. "Are you serious right now?" His voice carried the sharp edge of a man who viewed interruptions from the help as personal affronts. "This is a multi-million-dollar negotiation, not some tourist conversation. What could you possibly know about international business?" Derek shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the dangerous territory they were entering. "Sir, maybe we should—" "No, Derek. I want to hear this." Marcus's tone was mocking, cruel even. "Go ahead, sweetheart. Tell me how a hotel worker is going to save my German deal." Amanda felt the familiar sting of prejudice, but her voice remained steady. I understand your skepticism, Mr. Wellington, but— My skepticism? Marcus laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Lady, I don't have time for whatever game you're playing. I need real solutions, not some fantasy where the cleaning staff suddenly becomes qualified for corporate negotiations. The words hit their mark, designed to wound and dismiss. Marcus had used variations of this tone countless times, with valets who offered unsolicited advice, with service workers who tried to engage beyond their prescribed roles, with people who looked like Amanda and dared to suggest they belonged in his world. I'm not cleaning staff, Mr. Wellington. I'm a server, and I studied international relations at Georgetown before— Georgetown? Marcus's eyebrows shot up, but his skepticism only deepened. Right, and I'm sure you were valedictorian too. Look, I don't know what kind of con you're running, but I don't have time for— Amanda's pulse quickened. This was the moment everything could fall apart. One wrong word, and they'd laugh her out of the room. She took a breath, straightened her posture, and let the training take over. Guten Morgen, meine Herren. Es ist mir eine große Ehre, Sie heute hier begrüßen zu dürfen. Ich hoffe, Ihre Reise war angenehm und Sie haben sich bereits von der Zeitverschiebung erholt. The words flowed from Amanda's lips with perfect pronunciation and formal cadence, cutting through Marcus's dismissal like a blade through silk. The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of the air conditioning. Marcus's mouth dropped open and Derek's tablet nearly slipped from his hands. That's actually German, Derek whispered, his voice filled with wonder. Amanda continued, her composure unshaken by Marcus's earlier cruelty. Good morning, gentlemen. It is my great honor to welcome you here today. I hope your journey was pleasant, and you have already recovered from the jet lag. She maintained steady eye contact with Marcus, who was staring at her as if she had just performed actual magic. I also know that Herr Schneider prefers to be addressed by his full title, that they consider small talk about weather insulting, and that they'll expect you to stand when they enter and remain standing until they're seated. Marcus's world shifted on its axis. The assumptions he had made, the prejudices he had displayed, the casual cruelty he had shown, all of it crashed against the reality of what he was witnessing. How is this possible? He stammered, his corporate facade crumbling. I studied international relations at Georgetown for 3 years and spent a year abroad in Berlin, Amanda replied simply. I left school when my mother got sick and needed round-the-clock care. I've been working here for 2 years, serving coffee to businessmen and listening to their conversations. You learn things when people think you're invisible. Hit subscribe if you believe people should be judged by their character, not their uniform. Amanda's just getting started. The last sentence carried a weight that made Marcus wince. He had treated her as invisible, as beneath notice, as someone whose humanity could be dismissed without consequence. Derek leaned close to his boss and whispered urgently, Sir, we're out of options. They arrive in 2 hours. Marcus stared at Amanda, his mind racing through calculations of pride, necessity, and the $40 million hanging in the balance. Finally, desperation overcame prejudice. Okay, he said quietly. Okay, maybe you could help. But I need to know you're serious about this. This isn't just about speaking German. It's about understanding business culture, protocol, the stakes involved. I understand the stakes, Mr. Wellington. I've been watching and learning for 2 years. I know what works and what doesn't. Marcus nodded slowly, then realized a practical problem. But wait. You're working. You can't just abandon your shift to help me. You're right, Amanda said. I need to speak with my supervisor. Give me 5 minutes. She left the conference room and walked quickly to the hotel's main kitchen, where she found Carlos Mendoza, the food and beverage manager, reviewing the day's orders. Carlos was a practical man in his 50s who had worked his way up from busboy to management over 20 years. "Carlos, I need a favor," Amanda said, slightly out of breath. "There's a situation upstairs. Mr. Wellington in the penthouse suite needs a German translator for a business meeting. I can help him, but I need to be released from my shift for about an hour." Carlos looked up from his clipboard with the expression of a man who had heard every possible excuse for avoiding work. "Amanda, what are you talking about? You're a server, not a translator, and we're short-staffed as it is." "I know it sounds crazy, but I actually speak German fluently. I studied it in college, lived in Berlin for a year. This could be really important." "Important for who? For Mr. Wellington?" Carlos shook his head. "These rich guys always think their emergencies are everyone else's problems. You have tables to serve, Amanda, real customers who are paying for service." "Carlos, please. This could change everything, not just for him, but for me, too." "Change everything how? You think one rich guy is going to transform your life because you helped him once? That's not how the world works, mija." Amanda was about to respond when Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking completely out of place among the stainless steel and industrial equipment. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to having doors opened for him. "I need to speak with the manager." Carlos straightened, immediately shifting into professional mode. "I'm Carlos Mendoza, food and beverage manager. How can I help you, Mr. Wellington?" "I need to borrow Ms. Johnson for approximately 1 hour. I'm willing to compensate the hotel for any inconvenience." Carlos's eyebrows rose. "Sir, I appreciate your situation, but Amanda has responsibilities. We're running a business here, not a temp agency." Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet, extracting 5 crisp $100 bills. Would this cover her absence and any additional staff needed? Carlos stared at the money, then at Amanda, then back at the money. $500 was more than most servers made in a week. Well, I suppose we could make an exception. Just this once." "Thank you," Marcus said, handing over the bills. "Ms. Johnson, shall we go?" As they walked back to the elevator, Marcus felt compelled to address the elephant in the room. "Look, about earlier, I was stressed, and I said things that were—" He struggled for words. "I made assumptions. That wasn't fair." Amanda studied his face. "You made assumptions based on what you saw. A black woman in a service uniform. It wasn't stress, Mr. Wellington. It was prejudice. But right now, we both have something to gain from working together. Let's focus on that." Her directness was like a cold slap, but Marcus found himself respecting her for it. "Fair enough, but I need to know, why are you helping me? After how I treated you?" "Because $40 million isn't just your opportunity, Mr. Wellington. It's mine, too. You need me right now, and I need you to see what I'm capable of. Sometimes that's how change happens, not through kindness, but through necessity." The elevator climbed toward the penthouse, heavy with assumptions challenged, and opportunities finally seized. Meanwhile, 27 floors below, 3 German executives stepped out of their limousine. "Typisch Amerikanisch," muttered Herr Schneider, adjusting his perfectly pressed suit. "They probably think Google Translate will suffice for a $40 million negotiation." "Ja," agreed Herr Miller, shaking his head. "No respect for proper protocol. I give them 10 minutes before they embarrass themselves." "Perhaps we should have stayed in Frankfurt," added Herr Weber. "Americans are never prepared for serious business." The elevator doors closed behind them as they ascended toward what they expected to be another disappointing American business meeting. Back in the conference room, Derek had been busy arranging appropriate attire for Amanda. A borrowed blazer from the hotel's business center and a quick touch-up transformed her appearance from service worker to professional consultant. "Remember," Amanda coached Marcus as they prepared, When they enter, stand immediately. Don't extend your hand first. Wait for Herr Schneider. And whatever you do, don't smile too much. Germans interpret excessive smiling as insincerity. Marcus nodded, chastened by the morning's revelations. I've been in business for 20 years, but I've never worked directly with German executives. I'll follow your lead. The door opened, and the three impeccably dressed German executives entered like a precision military unit. At their head was Herr Schneider, a man in his 50s with silver hair and the kind of penetrating gaze that suggested he'd built his fortune by seeing through pretense. Marcus started to speak, but Amanda smoothly stepped forward, her entire demeanor shifting into something that belonged in diplomatic circles. Herr Schneider, Herr Müller, Herr Weber, willkommen in New York. Ich bin Amanda Johnson, und ich werde heute unser Gespräch moderieren. Welcome to New York. I am Amanda Johnson, and I'll be facilitating our discussion today. Her German was flawless, her tone perfectly calibrated to convey respect without subservience. Herr Schneider's eyebrows raised slightly, a reaction that, in the context of German business culture, was equivalent to a standing ovation. Ihr Deutsch ist ausgezeichnet, Fräulein Johnson. Wo haben Sie studiert? He asked in German. Your German is excellent, Miss Johnson. Where did you study? In Berlin, Herr Schneider. Ich habe ein Jahr dort während meines Universitätsstudiums verbracht, mit Schwerpunkt auf internationale Beziehungen und Geschäftskultur. In Berlin, sir. I spent a year there during my university studies, focusing on international relations and business culture. Ah, ein praktischer Ansatz. Amerikaner, die in Deutschland studiert haben, kehren oft mit nützlichen Perspektiven zurück. Ah, a practical approach. Americans who study in Germany often return with useful perspectives. Marcus watched this exchange with growing amazement. He understood not a word of German, but he could read success in the relaxed postures of men who had entered the room with military stiffness. Gentlemen, Amanda continued, switching seamlessly to English, Mr. Wellington is honored by your presence and eager to discuss how our companies can create mutual prosperity. The negotiations that followed were a masterclass in cultural translation. Amanda didn't just convert words from one language to another. She contextualized, explained nuances, and prevented several potential disasters with surgical precision. When Marcus enthusiastically declared, "This deal is a slam dunk. We're talking about crushing the competition," Amanda paused thoughtfully before translating. Herr Wellington ist sehr zuversichtlich bezüglich dieser Partnerschaft und glaubt, dass sie durch Innovation und Qualität eine Marktführerschaft etablieren wird. Mr. Wellington expresses great confidence in this partnership and believes it will establish market leadership through innovation and quality. Herr Schneider caught her eye and said quietly in German, Ihre Übersetzung hat seine Bedeutung erheblich verbessert. Your translation improved his meaning considerably. Context is alles, Herr Schneider, she replied in the same language. Context is everything, sir. The meeting was progressing beautifully until Rebecca Thornton, the company's vice president of international relations, burst through the door like a hurricane in a Chanel suit. Marcus, I just heard about the translator situation. Thank God I'm here to... She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes landing on Amanda with confusion and growing recognition. I'm sorry, who is this? Rebecca's voice carried the particular tone that powerful women sometimes used when they felt their territory was being invaded. Derek tried to intervene with a whispered, Rebecca, not now. But Rebecca was like a dog with a bone. No, seriously, who is this woman and why is she sitting at our negotiation table? The Germans exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the interruption. Marcus's face reddened with embarrassment. Wait! Rebecca's voice grew louder as recognition dawned. Aren't you the girl who brings coffee to the executive floor? A deadly silence fell over the room. It was the kind of silence that precedes either violence or revelation. Amanda remained perfectly calm, turning to address the Germans in their native language. Meine Herren, ja, ich serviere Kaffee in diesem Hotel. Ich habe auch internationale Beziehungen studiert, in Berlin gelebt und spreche 4 Sprachen. Ich glaube, Sie beurteilen Menschen nach ihrer Kompetenz, nicht nach ihren Umständen. Gentlemen, yes, I do serve coffee in this hotel. I also studied international relations, lived in Berlin, and speak 4 languages. I believe you judge people by their competence, not their circumstances. Herr Schneider's response was immediate and decisive. In der Tat tun wir das, Fräulein Johnson. He turned to Rebecca, his English thick with accent, but his meaning crystal clear. In Germany, we have a saying, der Wert eines Menschen zeigt sich nicht in seinem Beruf, sondern in seinem Charakter. The value of a person shows not in their profession, but in their character. Rebecca's face burned with the particular shame of someone who had revealed their prejudices in the worst possible company. Miss Johnson has shown more professionalism in 1 hour than many consultants show in months, Herr Schneider continued. We will continue with her assistance. Rebecca retreated to a corner chair, suddenly fascinated by her phone screen. Shall we continue, Mr. Wellington? Amanda asked, as if nothing had happened. The contract signing was a formality after that. Handshakes were exchanged, genuine smiles appeared, and the tension that had filled the room that morning was replaced by the satisfaction of a deal well done. But Herr Schneider had one final surprise. Mr. Wellington, this partnership will be successful. But I must ask, will Miss Johnson be our primary liaison? Marcus was caught completely off guard. Well, typically our international relations department handles... We prefer to work with Miss Johnson, Herr Schneider interrupted firmly. She understands both cultures and communicates with clarity and respect. Rebecca tried to recover, forcing a brittle smile. Well, I suppose we can all agree it's unconventional, she muttered, clutching her tablet. But the Germans ignored her completely. Herr Miller turned slightly, his expression polite but cold, and said, In our firm, someone with your behavior would not represent us, no matter her title. Rebecca shrank in her seat, the rebuke hanging in the air like smoke. Marcus found himself agreeing to something he hadn't planned, but the $40 million now secured in his accounts made the decision easy. After the Germans left, Marcus turned to Amanda with something approaching awe. That was incredible. You saved a $40 million deal. We saved it together, she replied diplomatically. I'd like to offer you a position, Assistant Director of International Relations. $60,000 starting salary, full benefits, and... Mr. Wellington, I appreciate the offer, but I must decline. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Decline? But why? Amanda reached into her briefcase and pulled out a folder with the calm precision of someone who had been planning this moment. Because Herr Schneider offered me something better. Schneider Industrial wants to establish an American cultural consulting division. They've offered me the position of director, with a starting salary of $120,000 and equity participation. Marcus's jaw dropped. In the span of 4 hours, he had gone from racist dismissal to desperate need to complete outmaneuvering. They value competence over appearances, Mr. Wellington. They saw what I could do, not just where I came from. She glanced at the untouched coffee still sitting on the table, the one he'd barely noticed earlier. Funny, my mother used to say, sometimes we serve coffee until we can serve our dreams. She looked up. Today I served both. Rebecca, who had been pretending to work on her phone, looked up with barely concealed sarcasm. So you're abandoning us for the Germans? Amanda's smile was patient, but firm. I'm choosing opportunity over comfort, Rebecca. There's a difference. Marcus fumbled for his business card, extending it awkwardly. Well, If you ever change your mind, or if you need anything." Amanda looked at the card, then back at Marcus with a knowing smile. "I won't need it, Mr. Wellington. But thank you." She turned to Derek, who had been watching the entire exchange with quiet amazement. "Derek, you were the only one who treated me with respect from the beginning. I kept your number. I'll be in touch about opportunities at Schneider Industrial." Derek's face lit up with genuine surprise and gratitude. She gathered her things with the same quiet efficiency she had shown all day. "Mr. Wellington, thank you for the opportunity to prove myself." At the door, she paused for one final moment, looking directly at Marcus. "I hope you learned something today about the cost of assumptions. Sometimes the person you dismiss might be the person you need most." They thought she poured coffee. Turns out she was pouring the future. If this story moved you, share it with someone who's ever been underestimated. And subscribe for more stories where dignity wins and prejudice loses. In a world quick to judge by appearance, the smartest leaders learn to recognize talent wherever it appears. Sometimes the person you dismiss today becomes the person you need tomorrow. And sometimes the greatest opportunities come disguised as the people you least expect to help you.